This is Danish-InfoNewsTv, a Danish English special report on immigration. We'll be looking at why the UK wants to copy Denmark's immigration system. Greetings and welcome to Danish-InfoNewsTv, your go-to source for breaking news and in-depth analysis on Denmark and beyond. Today we're looking at a story making headlines across the UK. Why the British government is now looking to Denmark's strict immigration system for inspiration, and what it could mean for the UK and Europe. Stay tuned as we break it down step by step. Let's look at the UK's interest in Denmark. Later this month, UK Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is expected to make an announcement regarding a significant reform of the country's immigration laws. Furthermore, it has been reported that some of her plans are modeled after Denmark, which is renowned for having one of the strictest immigration laws in Europe. Even officials have been dispatched to Copenhagen to observe how Denmark handles family reunions, temporary residency regulations, and asylum seekers. The objective: reduce incentives for people to come to the UK while making it easier to remove those who shouldn't be here. The Danish system overview. So, what's going on in Denmark? Refugees who have been personally targeted by a foreign regime are usually granted protection, but most others, like those fleeing conflicts, are only allowed a temporary stay. Denmark decides what countries are safe. For example, in 2022, the Danish government told 1,200 refugees from Damascus, Syria, that their residency would not be renewed because it judged the area safe, even though the UN and EU disagreed. And it's not just temporary stays. Denmark has some of the strictest family reunion rules in Europe. If a refugee wants their partner to join them, both must be at least 24 years old. The partner in Denmark must not have claimed benefits for 3 years. They must post a financial guarantee, and both must pass a Danish language test. If you live in a so-called parallel society, a housing area where more than 50% of residents are considered non-Western, family reunification isn't allowed at all. Let's look at Denmark's other controversial policies. Denmark also permits the state to sell or demolish apartment blocks located in these parallel societies. The government says this encourages integration. Critics argue it's discriminatory. And there is more. In 2021, Denmark passed a law allowing asylum seekers to be processed outside Europe, sparking outrage from human rights groups, the UN and the European Commission. Let's look at the current UK immigration rules. Before we dive into Mahmoud's proposal, let's take a brief look at how the UK immigration system currently works. People seeking asylum in the UK can apply for protection if they fear persecution in their home country. Asylum seekers are temporarily housed, often in hotels or accommodation centers, while their claims are processed, which can take months or even years. Refugees can eventually apply for indefinite leave to remain, usually after 5 years, and they may bring close family members under the Refugee Family Reunion Scheme. Family members joining must meet income and English language requirements, although some exemptions exist for children or spouses under 18. Mahmoud's proposal aimed to tighten these rules, including extending the period before indefinite leave to remain, adding stricter requirements for family reunions, and limiting asylum grants to temporary protection in most cases. Let's look at UK plans and Mahmoud's proposals. Mahmoud wants to reduce incentives that attract immigrants to the UK while making it easier to expel those who have no right to remain. She's expected to tighten family reunion rules along the Danish model and extend the period for indefinite leave to remain from 5 to 10 years. Under the Labour conference in September, she said, "Contribution to this country is a condition." Her proposals are meant to respond to the surge in channel crossings and growing public concern about immigration. Political reactions within Labour. Unsurprisingly, Mahmoud's plans are dividing Labour. On the left, PMs like Clive Lewis and Nadia Whittome warned that adopting Danish-style policies is a dangerous path. Lewis said, "Denmark's Social Democrats have gone down what I call a hardcore approach to immigration. They've adopted many of the talking points of what we would call the far right." Whittome asserted that the policies pertaining to parallel societies are bluntly racist and unproductive from a moral, political, and electoral standpoint. Meanwhile, some Labour MPs in Red Wall states, where Reform UK is polling strongly, argue that the party must act. Joe White said, "If we don't adopt tougher policies, Reform will be the biggest challenger in most Labour seats and will be annihilated." Gareth Snell, MP for the Stoke-on-Trent Central, said, "Policies similar to Denmark are worth exploring. If asylum seekers can safely return home later, we should support that." Danish lessons for Labour. Denmark's experience offers lessons both practical and political. Back in 2015, the Danish Social Democrats faced a right-wing populist surge, much like the Labour today. Tightening immigration rules helped them regain power while still pursuing progressive reforms. Denmark's immigration minister, Rasmus Stoklund, says the approach is about protecting social cohesion. "We expect people who come here to participate and contribute positively. If they don't, they aren't welcome." For Labour ministers, that's a lesson balancing tough immigration policies with progressive domestic reforms. Controversy and charities. Not everyone is convinced. More than 100 charities, including Save the Children, Oxfam, and Refugee Action, have criticized Mahmoud, accusing her of scapegoating migrants and pursuing performative policies that do harm. They argue she should focus on real issues: housing, NHS pressures, and the climate crisis. Public opinion and channel crossings. Immigration is now the top concern for British voters, even ahead of the economy. Many feel overwhelmed as asylum seekers are temporarily housed in hotels, while struggling families face high bills and housing shortages. Political pressure increases when you combine this with the steady flow across the channel. For Labour, it's about surviving the next election, not just about policy. Denmark and the global community, interdependent impact. But Denmark's impact reaches beyond its borders. Its model has influenced immigration debates across Europe, in Sweden, Germany, and now the UK. At the same time, Denmark is shaped by global forces too, from EU migration rules to international refugee obligations and human rights laws. Its tough stance has sparked both imitation and backlash, forcing a wider conversation about how small nations manage identity, integration, and humanitarian responsibility in a globalized world. Summary. So, what does this all mean? Mahmoud's proposals could reshape UK immigration policy, tightening rules on family reunions, temporary stays, and asylum. But the plan is controversial. It splits her party, draws criticism from charities and human rights groups, and could define Labour's standing with voters. The key question is whether implementing some of the Danish model will help Labour win back support from the left or cause more controversy. The UK's proposed shift towards Danish-style immigration rules could mark one of the most significant changes in decades, a move balancing border control, politics, and humanitarian values. But the question remains, can Labour navigate this without dividing its party or alienating the voters it hopes to win back? That concludes Danish-InfoNewsTv Special Edition. Subscribe to Danish-InfoNewsTv, click the bell to receive notifications, and don't miss our upcoming in-depth analysis for more updates on how Danish politics impacts the world.